CSS Container Queries, a fairly new feature in CSS that's been generally available since September of last year, 2022. So you know how with media queries we define specific styles based on the viewport size? With container queries we can do the same, but instead of the viewport size, we can define styles based on the container size or the element size. And that's the next level responsive design. Let me show you an example. So this is a standard block layout. At the top we have a featured post and an article card with a horizontal layout that spans across the whole width of the container. And then below that we have a grid of the same component, but in vertical layout. So we have the image first and then we have the metadata. This can be achieved easily with container queries. And we're going to check out this example in today's video. All right, here's the code pen. I'm going to leave a link in the description if you want to play with the code yourself. And here's the article cards. So we can see that the layout is vertical, but if we make more room, we can see that the card goes into a horizontal mode and then the text is on the left with the image on the right. Cool, here's our markup. It's an article tag. It has a postcards, there's a content inside, an image, a heading, paragraph, a link, and that's about it. So let's see how we can define a container on the article itself. To define a container, we need to define the container property in CSS as a postcard/inline size. So what does this mean? This is a shorthand property for setting the container name property to postcard. This is just giving a name to our container. And also the container type property to inline size. The inline size value declares the containment context on the inline axis, which means that we're going to be defining styles based on the width of the container. If we wanted to define styles based on the height, we would just use size instead of inline size. Bear in mind that when you define a container to a specific element, it will prevent that element from being sized based on its contents. So in this case, we have our inline size set. That means our article element will have a 0 pixels of width value, regardless of the size of its contents. If we pick the size container type, then the height is going to be 0. So in this case, when defining a container, we need to define the width or height, either explicitly by setting the width and height to a specific value, or from its outer context, like putting it into a flexbox or a grid. And this is all we need to do to define a container. Okay, so in our case, the article tag is going to have a containment context defined. It's going to be named postcard, and it's going to be sized on the inline axis. Cool. Now let's see how we can define the styles. Just like the media query, we have a @container rule that we use to define container queries. We put the name of our container, and then we put the condition, which in this case is a minimum width of 512 pixels. This means that when the container or our article element reaches at least 512 pixels, these styles are going to be applied. So inside of this is pretty much the same as the media query. We define our styles within that block. One thing to bear in mind that when defining a container query, which in our case is the postcard, the top level context is being set to the actual article tag. So all of the selectors that we define within this container query must target its descendants. So if we try to target an element that's not within the article, it's just not going to work. Okay, then we proceed to define our style. So let's change the orientation, set the poster as the second child. So when it's expanded, the image is on the right side, not on the left, and then increase the gap. There's one more thing that I didn't mention, is that we have new value types for container queries. And you can see that here, 2.75 CQI. That means this element is 2.75% of the inline size of the container query. So let's make this clearer. So 1 CQI is 1% of the inline size. Then we have 1 CQB, which is 1% of the block size. Then we have 1 CQW, which is 1% of the container width. We have 1 CQH, of course, and that's just 1% of the container height. And then we also have CQ min and CQ max, which are the smallest and largest values of either CQI or CQB. So in our case, we're setting the font size to a value that's relative to the inline size of the container. So we can see that the font size is smaller, but as the container grows, the font size also grows. And that was CSS Container Queries. Again, they're generally available in all modern browsers, which means we can use them starting today. I hope you liked this video. If you liked it, make sure to hit like and subscribe to my channel for more content like this. Thanks for watching.